There was a little survey done, a little article that was written about it just before Thanksgiving last year. And they asked the question in this little survey, this little article, about what are the most difficult things to talk about around the Thanksgiving table? What are the most difficult things to talk about around the Thanksgiving table? What do you think was the number one, top on the list? Politics, yep. Number two in this little article, this small survey, was personal finances. That was the most difficult thing to talk about at the Thanksgiving table. So there was another bigger survey done last year, and they asked about 1,200 people all across the nation. They asked them this question: what are the most taboo topics? What are you most uncomfortable talking about? Now, this is interesting. What the survey found is that people are more comfortable talking about mental illness, drug addiction, race, politics, religion, and marriage problems. People are more comfortable talking about all of that than they are talking about money. Interesting, huh? Now, out of a dozen topics, women, men alike ranked household earnings and retirement savings and debt as the most taboo things that you could talk about with another person. And the surprising thing is that this was true across all ages, all demographics, and the more money you have, the more uncomfortable you are talking about it. Sociologists and psychologists say the reason this is so is because money touches on every aspect of our lives. Every single part. It gets at our mental health, our physical health. It gets to our questions about our self-worth and our standing in the world. It touches on our relationships and conflict and marriage and work and issues of social justice and personal moral relationships and questions. I mean, money becomes the symbol. It becomes this proxy for everything else in our lives. And that means that a healthy relationship with money leads to healthier relationships with other people, healthier physical lives, social lives, mental lives, and especially spiritual lives. And that's why today we're starting this new series called Money Matters. It's really just a conversation about our relationship with money, what our world says about it, and how Scripture encourages us to have a different, healthier relationship to our finances. And we talk about this sort of thing every year. There's a point in every year where we're moving toward our Commitment Sunday, which is October 27th. But we talk about this to help us see a bigger picture about this important part of our lives. And along the way, we're going to talk about some real practical stuff. Ways that here at Woods Chapel, we want to help you live a healthier life financially. And why would we do this? Well, the one we follow, Jesus said, I want you to have life and I want you to have it abundantly. And we can't do that if we have a distorted view of our finances or if we're constantly struggling with our finances. So whether you're struggling right now or you're doing fine but maybe not being very intentional about that part of your life, or you're abounding in financial resources, we're going to have something to both encourage and challenge all of us. And what I'm talking about isn't just for you. It is for me personally. I'm going to tell you about some of the ways that I struggle with these things. And I'm counting on the fact that as I tell you my struggles, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I get it. I struggle with that stuff too. I wrestle with that. So for example, I have two powerful forces that are at work in my life all the time. They're within me all the time. There's this one force within me that loves gadgets and electronics and tools. Anybody with me on this? Okay, I have this force that is drawn to those things. And then I have another force within me that is really super frugal. That is okay, that's a nice way to put it. There's a part of me that is a tightwad. And I don't want to spend money, especially money that I don't have to spend. And I don't want to waste money. I want to be able to use it to help other people. So this battle rages inside of me, whether I'm thinking about buying something that's $5 or something that might be $500. Same battle inside me. The way the battle got lived out most recently is the purchase of a car. Oh my gosh. We do it so seldom in our house, so we tend to run our vehicles until they are dead and hand them off to, we have two kids, so hand the cars down and oh my gosh. But my car was a 4Runner. 2011 4Runner. I'd had it for about 8 years. It had 190,000 miles on it, and I was starting to not trust it anymore. You get to that place where it's starting to shake, and I knew that it needed an alignment, and it needed new brakes, and it needed new tires, and oh my gosh, I just don't trust it anymore. So I began that journey of looking for a new vehicle, which I just hate doing. But here's the thing. When I began the journey, like Janet and I, we tithe, we give beyond the tithe, and we save for big stuff. We try to practice that. But I still struggle. Like, okay, do I need this? I need this. I need this thing. And then as soon as I say the word need, all of a sudden I'm like, no, you don't need it. You know what need is? It's somebody that's trying to figure out how to feed their family. That's need, or someone that is in need right now because of the hurricanes that have hit. That's need. So what do I end up feeling? I feel guilty and ashamed and confused, and it never feels right. I mean, I found a car that was low mileage, used car that I thought it's right in my price range. I can do this, but all along the way I felt that turmoil of wanting to do this and not wanting to do this. It's there and it's real. Most of us wrestle with these things. And I think it'll help us to live more balanced lives, more joyful lives when we talk about this stuff, even though a lot of us would say, ooh, it's taboo. Maybe you can't talk about it around the Thanksgiving table, but church should be a safe place to be talking about anything. But I want to be clear when it comes to this issue about stuff and money, I can't judge you. I can't. I am not in a position to judge you. I can only judge myself. When it comes to money and possessions, I know how much I make. I know how much I save. I know how much I give away. I know when it's okay to splurge and buy something that I don't really need because I feel like it balances out sometimes. And I also know when I'm not balanced. I know these things. I don't know about you. I just know about me. A pastor I know had a missionary come speak at his church about ministry with the poor and ministry around injustice. And they'd gone out to dinner together before an evening event. And so this pastor and this missionary pulling in. And about the same time, a guy pulls in with the top of the line, brand new Lexus. And the missionary says to the pastor, that's what I'm talking about right there. Those people who drive cars like that and don't care about the poor. And the pastor said, wait. Let me straighten you out on something here. I know that guy. He's a friend of mine. He makes $1 million a year. He gives $700,000 a year away to help in ministry to the poor. That's why he's coming to this event tonight. He could teach both of us a lesson on generosity. He could be driving a Rolls Royce, but he lives 5 levels below his means. See, that's where we need to make sure that we're not judging anybody except ourselves. So this isn't about me judging you. It's about me looking at my life. And it's about me encouraging you to look at your life. So let's talk. I'm going to shift gears here. Let's talk about our lives and the American dream. The American dream. I mean, what does it look like? If you look at the founders of our country, they had one kind of American dream. And the dream was about life, liberty, and the what? Pursuit of happiness. Now, that means something different to us today than it meant to them. And there are other great dreams, too. There's the inscription at the base of the Statue of Liberty. We were there last summer and got to be around that and see that. That's a pretty cool vision of a dream. Then there's the Gettysburg Address. That's another dream. There's Martin Luther King Jr. standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial and giving the I Have a Dream speech. And those are some lofty, beautiful dreams. But I don't think that's really what we're talking about when we refer to the American dream. And the American dream for most of us is that chance to pursue more than what we have right now, to gain more than what we have, to be successful. And success in this regard is often measured as having more stuff. When I was a kid, I'll tell you what the American dream meant. It meant us owning our own home. So I was in kindergarten when that happened. My dad was a newly minted professor at Central Missouri State University, UCM today. And we lived in an apartment for a while our house was being built. And it was a brand new house, 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, a split level house. And it had an unfinished basement. And it was huge for us. Now the American dream has shifted. The average size home in 1950 was 1,100 square feet. In 1970, it was 1,400 square feet with a 2-car garage. In 2022, average home size was just over 2,500 square feet with a 3-car garage. But now, our homes are twice the size they were in 1950, but we still don't have room for all our stuff. So what do? We rent. Storage unit, self-storage unit, one of the most booming economic things in our country. Here's a fun fact. There's around 21 billion square feet of self-storage for us to put all our stuff in that we can't fit in our third-car garage, in our attic, and our basement. And I look at that and I think, this is the American dream? Really? This form of the American dream has been fueled by two different diseases that I want to touch on here. They're kind of social and spiritual illnesses. The first one has been called affluenza. Have you heard of that? Affluenza. There have been books written about it and a couple documentaries. But here's one definition. Affluenza is the bloated, sluggish, and unfulfilled feeling that results from efforts to keep up with the Joneses. No offense, there are some Joneses sitting right here in the front row. It's an epidemic of stress, overwork, waste, and indebtedness caused by the pursuit of the American dream and unsustainable addiction to economic growth. I'm curious, how many of you know a guy by the name of Dave Ramsey? Raise your hand. Okay, a bunch of you. That is really cool. He does a podcast and a radio show helping people with the stuff we're talking about here. And we offer his class twice a year, Financial Peace University. So he's done some surveys. He points out that 70% of Americans say that their favorite recreational activity is shopping. Now, I ain't judging, right? I can get there. We love to shop. It's become an American way of life. Our economy has become built on consuming. In the 1950s and 60s, people consumed, but there wasn't this drive to spend everything we had and money that we don't yet have to consume even more. We built our economy on that for the last 70 years. And we measure consumer spending. You hear about it all the time. Consumer spending has an impact on the stock market. It has an impact on your retirement funds. I'll never forget that right after 9/11 happened, one of the things we were told to do, I saw it in several different places, one of the things we were told to do is go out and buy something. It's your patriotic duty. And I get the logic behind that, but all it does is fuel this affluenza. And there's a lot of targeted marketing fueling this illness too. I mean, everything I read, everything I watch, every social media feed that I attend to has some element in there where it's trying to sell me something. People have spent a lot of money and time to figure out how to convince me that I'm not really happy with what I have and that all I need is just a little bit more, and they're really good at it. I mean, the algorithm knows me better than I know myself. You ever find that? Like, oh my gosh, I think I thought that I wanted that. I don't think I said it out loud, and suddenly there it is. I find myself saying, these people are right. I do need that thing. I need more. I deserve that. This is the disease of affluenza. There's another disease that goes along with affluenza that takes it from just a nuisance to something potentially deadly. It's called credititis. Now, here's credititis. It's the opportunity to buy now and pay later. And this is very different today than it used to be. 50 years ago, didn't work that way. How many of you all remember something called layaway? Layaway, a few of you. Layaway, and my kids do not know what layaway is, but it's where my mom used to go pick something out of the store. They would put it back on a shelf somewhere, and she would go in every week and put $5 down, give $5 until the thing was paid for, and then she would take it home. That's often how it was done. Now, have you noticed this? Almost every purchase you make online now has a button next to it that says, buy now, pay later. It's right there. And then credit cards have become a way of life for us. In 1990, average credit card debt for American households was $3,000. So far in 2024, the average household credit card debt is about $10,680. Now, if you don't pay that off every month, do you know what your interest rate is that you're paying? Average interest rate on when you don't pay off your bill every month, interest is 23%. You should know that. And young people especially, before you get into it, you should know that. It used to be that you had to make a minimum payment on your credit card of 4% on your balance. A lot of companies today will allow you to make a 2% payment. So assuming that you didn't use your credit card anymore and you had a maximum balance of about $10,000 on it, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to use it anymore, and I'm going to pay the minimum amount to pay that off. Do you know how long it would take to pay it off? I crunched the numbers. I may be wrong here. I think if I'm wrong, it's because it's actually longer. 15 years to pay that off. Now, I'm not saying credit cards are evil. That's not my point. But they can cause problems. When we pay with credit cards, what studies show is that you spend 12 to 18% more when you use a credit card rather than cash. I don't know if it's the same with a debit card or not, but with a credit card, you spend 12 to 18% more because there's that lack of connection between you exchanging something for something else. It's not just credit cards, it's car financing too. Bought my first car in 1991. And back then, car loans were 3 years and you had to put down a significant down payment. Now, over half of all new car purchases are financed for 72 months. That's 6 years. It's possible to get 84 and even 96-month financing on a car. That's 8 years, by the way. So at 15,000 miles a year, the car will have 120,000 miles on it by the time you're finished paying it off. Not many people keep their cars for 8 years. We tend to in our family, but not many people keep their cars for 8 years. The average is 3 to 4 years. So here's the question. What happens when you have a 6 or 7 or 8 year loan on your car and you go buy a new one after 3 or 4 years? You still got a loan, so you're upside down in your car, which means you owe more on it than it's worth. But your car dealer, you're buying a new car, your car dealer will say, hey, no problem. We'll just roll what you owe on your old car into the loan for your new car. So you're buying a new car, and your loan is 115 or 120% of the cost of your new car. And then you want to do it again in 3 years. Even though you got an 8-year loan, you want to do it again in 3 years. And at that point, they make you sign a form, and you become an indentured servant for the rest of your life. And you're like, no, hey, how about one of my kids? And they're like, no, we've seen your children. No. You get the picture? Credititis. And home mortgages used to be 30 years with a 5% down. We've come to a place where you can take out 2 loans. Now, this kind of comes and goes. These sort of things, restrictions begin to happen. But you can get 2 loans, one for 80% of the cost of your house and one for 20% to cover that closing costs and your down payment. Banks are introducing 40-year mortgages and 50-year mortgages. That allows people to buy more house than they can afford. And here's the big problem. For most of Americans, their single largest savings account is the equity they're building in their home. It's their single largest savings account. But now a new invention, not necessarily new, but something that you can do is get a home equity loan. And that allows us to take out the equity we should have been building over time and spend it on what? Well, anything. Maybe something important. Maybe it's stuff that we won't even remember, especially when we realize we have nothing when we retire. But we won't ever actually retire because we'll be working until the day we die in order to put food on the table. Credititis. Isn't this all such good news? Don't you love this? So, Scripture talked about credititis very succinctly in a way that once you read it, it kind of sticks with you. This is what it says about credititis in the book of Proverbs 22:27. It says, the wealthy rule over the poor, and here's the part that hopefully you will remember, a borrower is slave to a lender. Now here's what I'm getting at. Affluenza and credititis have put so many of us in a place where there's just no margin financially in our lives. And that means with no margin in our lives, that means any little hiccup can put us in a place of chaos. You know, the hiccups happen. Your car breaks down. You get an extended illness, a loss of a job, an unexpected emergency expense, and all of a sudden it's right there in your face. What do I do? Is it bankruptcy? Is it foreclosure? Causes a lot of relational fractures. Can cause a lifetime of difficulties. What I hope to accomplish in this series is to give us biblical, practical ways to experience freedom. Yeah. Affluenza and credititis, freedom from that, freedom from fear, freedom from the constant pressure to consume, to show us how to have financial breathing room for our own sanity, and so that we can be the most generous people on the planet in the face of human need. To get us to a place where we have the margin to resource amazing dreams and amazing visions and opportunities. And by the way, you don't even have to be a Christian to benefit from this. It's simply good, practical teaching. But following Jesus can really help because our faith calls us to pop the hood, look under the hood. Because all the stuff that I've talked about so far is just symptomatic of what's going on inside of us that needs to be addressed. And all along, Jesus is saying something very simple. He's saying, I love you, and I want the best for you. Come follow me. I'll show you the way. So, if you are struggling with affluenza or credititis, caught up in more, bigger, better, there's a way to freedom. There's a way to freedom. And it's not through shame, and it's not through guilt. It's through learning a new way. And it's why we talk about this, even though it's a taboo subject. It's why we offer Financial Peace University. It's helped so many people over the years. It's why I'm always asking you to put your faith into practice in a daily way through worship and study and serving and giving and sharing your faith. I mean, it's in the practices of the faith that our perspectives change, and when our perspectives change, our behaviors change along with them. Now, Jesus didn't lay a bunch of judgment on people when they got this stuff wrong. He's not laying judgment on us. Instead, he offered love and an alternative way of living that leads to freedom. Freedom from the never-ending cycle of wanting more and more and more. Here's how Jesus put it, very simply. Matthew 16:26. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? He wanted us to know this. We can't solve spiritual problems with material solutions. Can't solve spiritual problems with material solutions. We want to feel happy. We want to feel secure. We want to feel worthy. We want to feel loved. Those are spiritual things. And our world around us says, hey, just buy more stuff and you'll fix it. That you are just one purchase away from the life you always wanted. But you cannot solve spiritual problems with material things. So Jesus invites us to push back against that thinking. He says that a life of less material things is the way to greater flexibility. He says a life of less material things is a way to honor God. And a life that's centered on God, that finds joy in relationships, a life that's more about giving than getting, this is the path to worth and security and love and freedom in a world that pushes us to want more. Jesus invites us to want less. So in the face of affluenza, in the face of credititis, there's hope and there's possibility. So next week, I'm going to talk about saving and spending and being intentional about those things. The struggle's real for all of us, and there is a better way. And for today, that is the good news. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.